On this episode of Living Your Best Life, I'd like to introduce a licensed mental health counselor with Total Life Counseling from Dallas, Texas. She's worked with the NBA, she's worked with Major League Baseball, and she's helping families all over the country. My friend, Dr. Jada Jackson. I want to introduce you to some of my friends who are going to share some relevant issues that we all go through.
See, when you hold it inside, it's like a volcano. And sooner or later, it erupts. I want you to know that there is hope. And if you're going through a hard time, you're not alone.
The more you see your dreams and goals, the more likely you are to take action towards them and be accountable. I'd like to welcome Dr. Jada Jackson. Dr. Jada, it is great to have you on our segment today, Living Your Best Life, and coming all the way from Dallas, Texas, I believe.
Absolutely, and I am living my best life here in Dallas. I just need you to know that, Mark.
Well, I once wrote a book called How to Be the Happiest Person on the Planet. It looks like you're trying to take that spot away from me with that big smile.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. You have to keep it positive. That's my motto.
Yes. You know, in as positive we can be, I mean, obviously we're talking about a very difficult topic. And it's something that has really, when I started reading the statistics on domestic violence, it really shocked me that, I mean, there was one statistic that said that eventually 1 in every 3 women will experience some sort of domestic violence. And I just thought, man, that's like, we all have to know someone that has gone through or going through some type of domestic violence. Mm-hmm. Can you give a definition of what domestic violence is?
Absolutely, and you know, and you're right. That statistic is very alarming when you're talking about 1 in 3. But when we look at it, first of all, I'd like to say that when it comes to domestic violence, it's about power. So when you ask the question, what is domestic violence? It's a pattern of coercing and controlling and dominating and attempting to completely take control over a person using physical abuse. It can be emotional or psychological. It may be financial. I don't know if you've ever heard of gaslighting, but usually gaslighting is a psychological manipulation that's used to maintain power and control over the victim. So, you know, abusers oftentimes use any weapon that they can use, whether, again, it's a physical force, an emotional, psychological, it sometimes has to do with money to gain power.
You know, that goes right to my next question, was that many people that are abused and experience domestic violence often go back to the person that abused them. And I guess that's because of the power, and maybe you could explain some of that, or why do people do that? You
know, that's really a complicated question, and I'm glad that you asked it, because you have to realize that once a manipulator gets the victim in a submissive state, whether it's emotionally or psychologically, and oftentimes financially, that victim feels like they have absolutely no power to step out on their own. They feel that if they do, the perpetrator will harm them even further. And if you look at research and statistics, that does happen. So there's an interesting power dynamic that takes place, and victims are just that. They're victims of this scenario, and it looks like and seems like they should just be able to break free and run, but it's not that easy.
You know, from the outside looking in, it seems like you say, why would they even go back? But what are some of the warning signs for domestic violence? If someone, you meet someone and they're so nice to you and you think everything's going great, what are some of the warning signs that they should be aware of?
You know, usually it's that manipulation factor, but whenever I see, especially women, when their behavior starts to change and they're not doing the same things that they used to do, or they're checking in often with their partner for whatever reason and they're not able to do certain things, or you call them and they say, oh, I can't talk because this person's coming home, or they hang up. it's interesting enough too, because the jealousy of the perpetrator becomes a looming force that controls the victim. So looking for those signs would be helpful for any family members who think that their loved one might be in this kind of relationship.
Oh, that's good. I saw another statistic said that 1 in every 4 men are a victim of domestic violence. And I think to myself, I was a former boxer, professional wrestler. I could never imagine being in that relationship. But when I was reading more into it, it had so much to do with rage and like out of control and just trying to stop somebody from getting crazy. And reading these stories of men that have gone through this, they're almost like protecting themselves. But God forbid if they hit back or something, then it's like they're going to be arrested. So what would you tell a guy? I mean, what should a guy do if, he could obviously overpower a girl most of the times anyway. But what would you say to a man that's in a relationship like that?
Again, Mark, all of these are such complicated questions, and it's around 18% of men who are abused. I would say to those men, again, look at the manipulative factor in the relationship. Again, I have seen women who have used the law as a controlling factor. So that's abuse, meaning they manipulate their partner into an argument and provoke him to maybe hit her or to aggress her in some way. And then the next thing you know, she's threatening to call the police. So guys have to be especially cognizant of that factor. But then I think there's another issue. For men who maybe are not as assertive, or they had a dominating mother figure who was controlling, well, those guys find themselves in scenarios where stronger women, they do control them, manipulate, and abuse them.
There's something else that I wanted to ask you about, was intimate partner violence. I was trying to understand that, and you kind of cleared it up a little bit, but explain what intimate partner violence is.
Mm-hmm. Intimate partner violence is kind of exactly what it infers, that in an intimate relationship, whether it's boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, in that dynamic, there's such an intimate space there that there's a lot of manipulation and control, and usually sex or sexual acts are used to control and manipulate. And so again, usually if there's some form of intimate partner violence, then let's just say there's an arrest or something to that nature. Usually the authorities are looking for some form of violation sexually, or something that happened in that space of intimacy.
Speaking of domestic violence, is drugs often a culprit in these? I mean, when you look at statistics and things, is drugs and alcohol usually a culprit in much of this?
Drugs and alcohol definitely may be a factor, but it is never the reason for why domestic violence takes place. But it can definitely be a factor. Remember, when we're talking about domestic violence, we're talking about power and control. There's a power control dynamic. And oftentimes, there's not a situation where a person becomes drunk or intoxicated, and then they inflict some form of pain. It's probably already happening. So the substance or the alcohol just really magnifies the situation.
Is domestic violence a cultural issue?
Domestic violence it's a cultural issue, but it spans all cultures. So, most people think that domestic violence only happens in very poor homes, or it happens in certain cultural homes, but violence it doesn't matter. You can find it, in the wealthiest home and in the poorest home. You can find it in the black home and the white home, or the brown home, or the yellow or purple home, whatever home it is. It's very consistent.
Let me ask you this though: if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, and obviously you're doing a great job there. You've changed and probably have saved more lives than we could even imagine. How can they get a hold of you?
Absolutely. I am a part of Total Life Counseling Center, and they can go to totallifecounseling.com. They can follow us at totallifecounseling.com on Facebook. And also, I have a personal Instagram where I love people to follow me on Instagram, where I give all sorts of tips and tricks and all sorts of things, all things mental health. So, and that is at Dr. Jada Jackson. That's my Instagram.
We will make sure we post all that. Dr. Jackson, Dr. Jada, thank you so much.
It's Dr. Jada.
God bless you.